Hi everyone, and I have to say that I'm really happy to see so many faces, and there are also some faces that I haven't seen for a while, but I know them. So great that you joined us, and yeah, this is just to say that why we thought it was important to organize this event. We would like to share some thoughts, some ideas, some experiences that we have about working with children. And we would like to raise some questions and more importantly, we would like to reconsider how can we adults change our approach. So first of all, Tuline will talk a little bit about children. Someone says no sound, but in the chat, sorry for asking, but do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, okay, great, sorry, just wanted to check. Okay, so Tuline first will talk about children and justice in the city, how and in what way are children excluded, and she will also talk about the concept of child-friendly cities. And then I will take the word and I will talk about co-creation. What does it mean actually co-creating knowledge on our cities together with children? And before starting, just wanted to say that all the experiences that we are presenting here are fruit of collective projects that we made together with children, with schools, with collectives, with associations, researchers, artists. So just to say that these are the fruits of collective efforts.
So thank you, Kitti, and thank you everybody to be here and for Duncan and Lucia to organize this. As Kitti said, I will very briefly present some elements to explain why children are excluded from the cities, or at least not fully included, in order to think together after this about how we can involve children in the co-creation of the city. We have very few time, so it will be a very brief presentation of this. First of all, yes, I would like to say, and everybody knows it, that we all have like nostalgic images of the cities, above all of the global north, where children were all in the street and where the city was like a big domain for children and a big playground. And actually, there is an historical movement that is a lot documented to show that children now are more confined in private spaces or are put in public spaces that are especially designed for them. And this because of several reasons. One is was the increase of cars in the cities and the fact that cities were produced by and for productive men, no, that I think was already said in the last Coco conversation. But also we have to mention the fact that the increase of the real estate speculation and the increase of the soil value also is a very important element that made that very little space is present for other actors that the productive men or women, and prevent them to inhabit the cities in a collective way, no? And that's why what we want to share with you today and what we want to speak about this way to inhabit in a collective way the cities. These very general elements don't have to hide the huge social inequities that are present within the cities, and also the fact that places for children and places created for children could get very well along with the gentrification of the city, no? That the creation of parks can be a very good point to increment the value of the real estate projects. And in the cities, we have different parts. No? We have parts where there are a lot of spaces for children and parts where there are not spaces for children. But what I wanted to share with you now is that in general, the children are places in residual space. No? Here we have the example of one under highway space in Mexico City, but we can find it in a lot of other urban contexts. And what is important for us to think is that this spatial exclusion of children goes along with their social exclusion. And that is the fact that the children are not considered as actors or inhabitants, plainly inhabitants of the city, that makes that they are excluded from the city and that there are no spaces for them. So the next slide, it's also in Mexico cities, but I guess you have it in all the cities where we are living. No, the same playground equipments appear everywhere in the world, and they look more kingdom of norms than children domains. No, they are almost all thought to be secured place for children and to minimize the risk, because also they correspond to a certain image of the children and of childhood that have to be protected, and that also go along with a fear from the other, and that they have to be protected for any risk, but also the risk can be other people, no? And these spaces are constructed from an adult perspective. We have a very clear ideas about this, what is and should be childhood, and as I said, to minimize risk. This picture that Kitti took is in Granada, and it's a park now in September, I think, where during the confinement. And it's interesting now to think about the response to the pandemic and how it increased former tendencies. It is to say the retreat of children from in private spaces, the fact that to be in collective is not fundamental for children. No, it is the case in schools, but also in parks. I mean, the places where children can meet other children, but also other people are closed. And this fear from others that is, yes, very strong today, because we don't have to meet other people because they can be a risk of contamination. After this very, very brief panorama, we wanted to speak very briefly about what are the child-friendly cities initiatives in a critical way. No, you should know about these initiatives that were launched by UNICEF in 1996 and are present in a lot of cities of the world, but are mainly made from an adult point of view and a very limited perspective about how children can be part of the process to create cities. No, here we can't speak a lot about a critical appreciation about the concept of participation, no, that are very present in the child-friendly initiative, and how just to say that we need that children participate is often not enough to co-create city with children. It's not about letting them speak in assemblies or in very punctual form, but we want to speak about a more permanent and more deep process with children. I think I will, I just wanted to highlight also the fact that play is very important to think about children in the city. No, is maybe the common ground of the behavior of children. It's not important only because it's good for their development, because this is a very common trend to say that play is important because it helps children to develop and to grow well. Just because play is the way that children are living, no, and to integrate children in co-creative processes, but also to integrate them in the city, we have to think about play as a fundamental part. It is to say also that we will not consider here just the creation of spaces that are dedicated to children formal play, but we want to think the city about play, urban area play, playground in its totality. So I let the...
Okay, yeah. So as you see, the title of this slide, we would like to talk about co-creation from a critical point of view. So what does it mean actually to co-create? Because I think that we overuse this word. So how can we really co-create, and how can we make sure that we really listen to the children and we really take their knowledge into account? And actually, the first thing is that I wanted to show you, yes, a drawing. This is a drawing made by a child in Granada, and it's about one characteristic thing in her city. This was the question, and what the drawing shows is this fountain, this well there in Granada, and this is a place where they play. So what I wanted to show with this drawing is that we can also put there, for example, a playground, but they are playing there at this place. They climb up, down, and so on. So what is co-creation? Actually, we are already always co-creating because the urban space is co-created because we move around, we have practices, everyday practices. So what we need to understand that these are already there, and projects don't come to an empty space, but they come to already existing practices, and this is the case with children. And the next question that I wanted to address is epistemic justice. That even when we talk about epistemic justice, we rarely talk about children. So we don't really take into account how do we address, for example, knowledge production? How do we ensure that we overcome our adult-centric approach in producing knowledge? And we don't really have time to elaborate on all these questions, but what I wanted to comment is that it's really important that we not only, we talk a lot about children, we talk about a lot about children's rights, we talk a lot about what children need, but I wanted to introduce the concept of a child's right to respect, which comes from Korczak's pedagogy, and I think it's really important. It's a really great thing to think of, that we have to see and we have to respect their knowledge. And it's not only about urban questions, it's about several other aspects of life, of course, as well. And
1 minute, Kitti.
Okay, yeah, I will hurry up, and I have a few more slides left where I just wanted to introduce the ideas that it's all about modalities and it's all about processes. So if we want to make sure that children can participate in the processes of knowledge production in our cities, then we have to change the modalities and the processes we work. So we have to adjust them, and we have to believe that they are legitimate ways of producing knowledge. So we can draw, we can ask questions, we can make collective mapping, we can use cartoons. These are all important ways of producing knowledge. And Here there are two examples of cartoons that we made together with children in different projects. I don't have time to talk about this now, so I go to the last slide of the presentation of this part. And this was made in a workshop at the university, so it's not made by children. But this drawing talks about intersectionality, and it talks about how different questions can come together. So what I wanted to say is that transversality is really important whenever we address the questions that affect children. And I think that we have to assume that there are different interests in the same space, but there is also the possibility of creating alliances. So we have to assume conflict, but we also have to see that there is a possibility to connect different issues and challenges.
Okay, if the screen sharers can stop sharing now, please. Okay. So thank you very much. Lovely presentation, seeing some of the vibrancy of what our cities and our communities can look like. If people have questions directly now for our guests, if they'd like to share them in the chat, any quick questions or clarifications, I can read them out. There's no questions, I don't think, in yet. No? Well, so maybe I'll kick off. So could you point or let us know of some cities that might be leading the way at the moment in terms of this vision of incorporating children more? If Tuline or Kitti would like to take that?
Yes. Actually, I cannot say about a city which included in his totality, because the example I know from the municipalities, they are more in the way of this child-friendly city initiatives. But there are some examples, for example, in the United States, in Boulder, where there is a big program called Growing Up Boulder, which has to do with Kevin Lynch, former growing up in the city from the 60s. And it's a very interesting initiative because it is the municipalities with the academy and with a lot of civil society initiatives. And it's a very long-term project. And for example, this is a very interesting way to involve children in the city process.
Okay. There's another question, if there's any good examples, maybe not of cities, but just even projects that you might know of in Europe? No. Or we can move on to the next one. There's a question here from Kirsten Pabi. How does your perspective link to the universal design that can be for the well-being of all cities?
I think that Tuline can take that because she had actually something about this in her.
The universal design, in the sense to bring everybody in the same place, is our perspective, or at least my perspective, are really to do with that. No, it's just not thinking only to places for children, but to involve children in the process, to think spaces that can be used for a lot of different uses, no, and a lot of different people.
Okay. So there's a question here from Shweta Srivastev. Again, excuse my apologies for pronunciation. When you say listening to the children and acknowledging their knowledge, what are some key principles or practices?
Well, I would take that. Well, I think it was really hard to make a summary in such a short time. So we will talk about a bit more about this when we share the experiences. but I think that it's really important to create those spaces of narration that are accessible for children. So we cannot expect children to participate in those spaces that we usually use as adults. But I think that also can be turned around, because more creative spaces could benefit a lot of other groups who are right now excluded from the co-production of knowledge, or the co-creation of these kind of projects. The other thing is that I'm really happy about all these questions that you are putting here, because I think it's also interesting to rethink, because what I see is, or as I see it, I think that we are kind of experimenting with different methods. So we both have been working on this topic for a long time, and but it's always like trying to see how to make it. So it's always in the process of changing and evolving. So the first thing that I wanted to share is this. This is a mental map. Of course, I've studied at the university. I've heard about, for example, I've heard about Lynch and so on. So when I started to make a research many years ago, I wanted to try these mental maps. I think it's a very basic idea of asking for these maps, but it's incredibly rich as a way of learning about how children view, how children see the city, how do they prioritize certain places, also the problems and everything. And also, I think that sometimes these maps are not, as they are perceptions, sometimes they are also about, as the next one shows, they are also about, more about desires. Because this one was made in Barra, in Naples, in the periphery of Naples. And of course, it's not like that. I mean, so it's. I think it's incredibly useful in this way. And also the next one, the next slide shows another project that we made at the same place with the Orangutan Collective, and it was about this map is about the legends of the neighborhood. And because we arrived there with a project, we had a proposal, and then children changed it. So they, instead of learning about what people know in the neighborhood, they wanted to talk about, in one of the classes, they wanted to talk about the legends of the neighborhood. But what does it mean? What are these legends? These were stories that they were telling to each other. Most of these stories involved a lot of violence, a lot of scary things. And this was a way they told about their realities, connected to different buildings in the neighborhood, to different places. So just to say that also these processes reveal a lot of other questions that, so this is also goes more deeply than just thinking about how children use, for example, the playground. And the next one is a photo that I wanted to share because I think it's really nice. It's also in Barra, in the same project. And what we've done is we went out with the children and just walking around and then talking about what we have observed. And I think it's really important to give time for reflection and observing what we see around and how do we see that, because usually we don't take time for that. And in many cases, children are not allowed to spend just time walking on the street and looking around. We kind of limit their way of being in the street. So this is one example, and the next one is about is about going out and trying to know our neighborhood better. This is from a project from the Albaicin, from the neighborhood of Albaicin in Granada, and there is a picture of a video where one of the students of the local school is interviewing two ladies, and at the end 3 ladies of the neighborhood, asking them about how do they feel, what are the problems of the neighborhood. So this is the way they learn about how people think about let's say the gentrification, tourism, housing, and all these questions. And then the other video is doing a performance, because what we have done is that we have made some debates, taking different points of view, and we have made also some performances that we expect. It was the same slide yet, yeah, where the interview was. Yeah, okay, so no, back. Sorry, not more one? Okay, yes, this is the one that's, no, the one before. Anyway, so this is the one still, yes, about the performance. And the next one, the next slide is from another project that was made in the same neighborhood in Albaicin, but it's about, it was about green areas in the neighborhood. And here you can see that what we introduced is not only mapping and walking around, but also learning about what are these trees, because also it's about creating spaces of collective learning, that we all need to have more information on what is surrounding us. And then now we can go to the next one, which is which I think I really love this this picture, and I really love this this video, because it's from a video made in 2018 by children of the Albaicin, who made a video based on a whole process of collaborative research in the neighborhood, where they went out, they made interviews, as you have seen it already. We did collective mapping, and we did a lot of other activities. And then they tried to create a story from this, what they have learned, what they think, and so on. So they did a story about the neighborhood, about the past, the present, and the future of the neighborhood. And in this moment, they imagined the neighborhood without tourists. And they imagined the trees growing different fruits and strange foods on the table, and so on. And I just wanted to say that it was so impossible in that moment to imagine the neighborhood without tourists, and just 2 years later, it became true. So this is exactly what happened this spring. And yeah, it's just the power of imagination that we could never dare to imagine that adults, I think. And there is another one about the imagination. The next one, which is a drawing made during the lockdown in spring, and it's about an imagined walk by a child. I asked children to send drawings about where would they want to be in that moment. And the next one is it's a picture of a project that I already showed before, which was, because it was not only about knowing the green spaces and then walking around and mapping them and asking children. Before, in the main presentation of at the beginning, I had a slide that I couldn't talk about, and that slide put a question that where they want to plant more trees. And one of the children said that there is a square where there are lots of bars, and she wanted to have more trees there. And this is the same project. And then what we did was that we went out, and of course it's a very simple intervention, but I think it's really significant, since if we plant trees or flowers or whatever, it becomes our common responsibility. So I believe in this, that this kind of small interventions are also important. Of course, we will have to bring them to a higher level, but I think it's also very important to have this kind of feeling of appropriating the spaces. And I give the word to Tuline.
Okay, so Kitti presented now projects that have different, that was quite long, I guess, no? That was processes involving children with different methods. I will now speak about two projects that were short, but to explain how, which method we can use and why did we use this method to work with children. So this is a project in Mexico City. Sorry. No, okay. Sorry. Okay. This is two projects in Mexico City. The first one was a collective project that aims to produce a kind of manual for public, for people working in public and in urban projects to involve children. No, because in Mexico City there is no, in the municipalities there is no people in charge of thinking projects for children, and it's a city where children are not integrated. So I worked during 2 years with children to ask their point of view on the cities, and the result of this was things that really they feel themselves excluded from the cities. And I wanted then to work with the public, that people working in public institutions, that to see how they could include the children's point of view. So there is a book called Play the City that is really based in the Mexican context. And what we did in this investigation was we wanted to include like a kind of experiment with children where they produced a form to evaluate playgrounds. No, in Mexico, the children are not in the city in general; they are really in playground. But we wanted to focus in this place, and so we made a work with them in several parts of the city where we worked with them on questions to be integrated in this format, and where they also help us to identify what was the important part, not only physical in the playground, but also what other part we have to take into account. Now, the distance from the house, the fact that there were other people in the playground to feel more safe, and etc. And at the end, this form was included in this bigger project about how to include the children's point of view of the city.
Just 1 minute, Tuline.
Yeah. And the second one, Kitti already spoke about mapping with children. In this case, it was a quite interesting project in a very dangerous neighborhood of Mexico City. Actually, it really has a fame to be the worst neighborhood in Mexico. But an association asked me to collaborate with them, to ask the children where was the places where they feel insecure, and also which kind of places were insecure for them. And it was very a surprise, first because we realized that for the children, this neighborhood is not always considered as very dangerous. Now you can see the drawing of the children that we see like little hearts, and it looked like a very nice place. And actually, children are playing in the street, and they are not playing in other parts of the city that are less dangerous. And the other surprise here was that children decided themselves to map the neighborhood, and they were very little children, and they were able to do a map. While if we read things about children psychology, we can see that children, they are often too little to do mapping, and that they need to acquire yes, some skills to do maps later. And we could see that children that really know their environment and that are a lot in the street and they work a lot in the street, they also have very good skill mapping, and it helps us to understand that mapping with children can be included in projects with children, and gives us a lot of information. So this is for after, no? Kitti, the last one? Okay, so it's a very short time to speak about a lot of projects. I hope you could follow something, and we will be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Super to get insights, even deeper insights there. We have a few questions. I'll go through them quickly and we'll try to get some responses. We've only about 5 minutes. There's one here from Patricio. Is the trend of young families moving away from cities, okay. Is the trend of young families moving away from cities and urban areas to more isolated or suburban environments impacting your work? Is it significant for work about children's role in urban design?
Tuline, do you want, or I?
Just wanted to say that something we didn't maybe put emphasis is about the importance of context, no? And I think Kitti and I worked in a very different places in Europe and not in Europe, and I think the most important thing is about thinking about context before doing project. In my case, I didn't had to do with the problematic you are mentioning, so it had not impact my work.
Yeah, in my case, it was not exactly because of families moving to suburban environments. It was more about families moving out from the neighborhood because of gentrification and growing pressure. I think it's also like it was and moving to other neighborhoods just beside. But I think it's really important, as Tuline says, looking at the context. But it's also true that if we don't have all this kind of a force of co-creating, if we don't have people, like if we don't have marginalized groups because they are going and moving out from different contexts, if we don't have children, if we don't have young families because they are pushed to move out, then we cannot co-create, we cannot make participation because they are not there. So it's not only about spaces of participation, it's also about looking at justice in a broader view in cities.
Okay, we have a question here. Have you involved city planners in your processes as listeners to the children's ideas?
In my case, the major part of my work was in Mexico City, and yes, I tried to involve urban planners, as I mentioned briefly when I mentioned this project. Yes, it was interesting to understand that a lot of them were discovering that there are children in the city. So really they say, oh yes, that's true, we never thought about it. So it was some kind of hope, but yes, I don't know if it worked a lot. Lots of other projects are very smaller scale projects, no, work in a community and didn't integrate urban planners.
The farthest I got on this line was presenting our work at a forum that was made by the university and the city council to involve citizens. Yeah, I am kind of critical towards these kind of spaces, because I think this kind of events, because I think that sometimes we just go there and present. We brought there the children themselves, actually. I think it's really important, because it wasn't us presenting, but we brought there a group of children. It was seen very they were surprised, but afterwards it's really hard to get there to see results and see a change, I think.
Okay. There's a question here. Do you do this work as part of the school time, practicing participation, or is it a part of leisure time? And also, how long are these projects?
Okay, in my case, it depends. Sometimes it's within the school, and sometimes it's not within the school. I think the two approaches are very interesting. No, within the school we can have access to a big variety of children, and outside the school we may have access to more motivated children at the beginning. So it really depends on the project, and also the time of the project really depends. There are projects that are we always prefer to work in a long time and long-term project, but sometimes there are projects of 2 months, and sometimes there are projects of 1 week.
Yeah, two of the projects, I have 10 seconds. Two of the projects that I talk more, they were like long projects. Like I returned to the places several times, or I was there for